The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Harrington Global Holdings gleamed with cold confidence. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the skyline of Manhattan, bathed in silver morning light. A long marble table stretched across the room, surrounded by powerful men in tailored suits, CEOs, venture capitalists, hedge fund managers. Every one of them white, every one of them watching closely. At exactly 9 a.m., the glass doors opened. The room shifted. She walked in with calm, measured steps. Nia Carter, black, elegant, unapologetically powerful. Her fitted charcoal suit hugged her frame with authority, not invitation. Her natural curls were pulled into a neat, low bun. Her face composed, eyes sharp with intelligence that didn't need validation. She was not here to impress. She was here because Harrington Global needed her money. At the head of the table stood Richard Harrington, founder and CEO, 56 billionaire and infamous for his ruthless business instincts. As Nia approached, Richard extended his hand to the man beside her. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, shaking hands with the white investors trailing behind her. "Welcome." Then he turned to Nia. Or rather, he didn't. His hand dropped to his side. A brief pause, an unmistakable one. Nia noticed immediately. So did everyone else. She extended her hand anyway. "Ms. Carter," she said evenly, offering professionalism wrapped in dignity. Richard glanced at her hand for half a second, then smiled thinly and turned back to the table. "Let's get started," he said, taking his seat. The room went silent. Heat burned beneath Nia's skin, not from embarrassment, but from something colder, something sharper. Disrespect. Not subtle, not accidental, intentional. She withdrew her hand slowly and took her seat without a word. But in her mind, a decision had already been made. Richard Harrington believed he had already won. The meeting was about a $500 million expansion project, new logistics hubs across Europe and Africa. Harrington Global was stretched thin, desperate for capital. Nia Carter was the largest private investor at the table. What Richard didn't know, what none of them knew, was who she really was. She wasn't a lucky hedge fund success. She wasn't a diversity checkbox. She was the majority shareholder of Carter Blackstone Capital, a global investment firm controlling assets north of $40 billion. And Harrington Global? It was already standing on her money. As presentations rolled on, executives spoke over her, interrupted her, repeated her ideas as if they were their own. Richard nodded at them, ignored her, until finally she spoke. "Your African logistics plan will fail within 18 months. The room froze. Richard looked up, irritated. "Excuse me. You're partnering with regional distributors that are under investigation for labor violations," Nia continued calmly. "Once sanctions hit, your supply chain collapses." A few executives shifted uncomfortably. Richard scoffed. "We've done our due diligence." Nia slid a tablet across the table. "Here's mine." Silence. Richard didn't even look. "We appreciate your perspective," he said dismissively, "but we've already secured backing." Nia smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Have you?" she asked. The meeting ended shortly after. Richard walked out confident. Nia walked out amused. That evening, Richard celebrated. Champagne, steakhouse, laughter. But across town, Nia sat in her penthouse, calm as ever, speaking into her phone. "Execute Phase 1. "Yes, Ms. Carter," came the response. Within hours, Carter Blackstone quietly withdrew liquidity from 3 banks financing Harrington Global. A compliance inquiry was triggered in Europe. A key shipping partner received an anonymous but documented whistleblower file. By midnight, Harrington Global's stock began to tremble in overseas markets. By dawn, it would bleed. Richard woke to chaos. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. "Sir, the Frankfurt Exchange. We've lost 2 credit lines. The African expansion partners are under review." Richard sat upright in bed, panic crawling into his chest. By the time he arrived at the office, the stock had dropped 18%. Board members were waiting, angry, terrified. "Where's the capital?" one demanded. Richard slammed his hand on the table. "It'll stabilize." But it didn't. By noon it was clear. The only investor capable of stopping the collapse. Nia Carter. Richard's pride warred with his fear. Fear won. Nia's assistant buzzed her. "Ms. Carter, Richard Harrington is on line 1. She didn't answer immediately. She finished her coffee, reviewed market reports, then finally, "Put him through." "Nia," Richard said, voice tight, "we need to talk." "Do we?" she replied calmly. "There's been complications." She smiled. "I warned you." A pause. Then, quietly, "I was hoping we could meet." Nia considered. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The same boardroom?" "No," she said. "My office." Richard arrived early. For the first time in his career, he was nervous. When Nia entered, he stood immediately. She walked toward him. Stopped. He extended his hand. This time it trembled. "I owe you an apology," he said, "for yesterday." She looked at his hand, the same one that had dismissed her, ignored her, diminished her. Slowly, deliberately. She did not take it. "You don't owe me manners," she said. "You owe me respect." Richard swallowed. "I misjudged you." "No," Nia corrected softly. "You revealed yourself." She turned and sat. "Now," she continued, "here are my terms." Her terms were brutal. Carter Blackstone would acquire 30% ownership. Richard would step down as sole decision-maker. A black woman would be appointed to the board. Full transparency audits moving forward. "This is extortion," Richard whispered. "No," Nia replied. "This is leverage." Silence filled the room. Finally, Richard nodded. "I accept." The market reacted instantly. Harrington Global rebounded. News outlets exploded. "Mystery investor saves Harrington Global." Who is Nia Carter? When photos surfaced of her, confident, poised, unshaken, social media erupted. And then came the viral clip. Security footage. Richard refusing to shake her hand. Followed by headlines. The hand he refused, and the power he begged for. Weeks later, at a public shareholders meeting, Richard stood beside Nia. Cameras flashed. He turned to her and extended his hand again. This time, she took it, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because she controlled the room. Applause thundered. Nia leaned toward the microphone. "Power isn't about who you ignore," she said calmly. "It's about who you underestimate." The room rose to its feet. Richard stood beside her, no longer above, but equal, and forever changed.